Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to Joe on Joe. It's me, your host, Joe Slepsky. And this week we are once again delving into the world of Joe on Joe Illustrated as we look at G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, number 82. If you're new to the show, Joe on Joe is the podcast where we have gone through every episode of the cartoons, episode by episode, and now we're working our way through the comic books, issue by issue, page by page, panel by panel, and really digging into the every single page of G.I. Joe Real American Hero. So welcome aboard if you're new, and welcome back if you're old, and if you're young at heart, good on you. Because after my first weekend out in post-COVID and seeing people, we're starting to see people again. This podcaster is exhausted. I got to tell you, that's the part. It's once you get back to living life again and seeing people and talking and walking and doing things, man, it catches up on you. This has been, I need Sergeant Slaughter to whip my tail and hoof it 35 miles back to the camp because I need to get in just walking shape, let alone fighting shape. But I'm happy to be here again, guys, because we are in podcasting shape. And G.I. Joe 82 is a great issue. So I'm really excited to get into that. Before we do, let's hear a word from our great sponsor, the Movies and a Meal podcast. Listeners, I know what you need in your life. You need more podcasts. And you also love movies. So why not do a podcast that's about not one movie. It's about not two movies. It's about 3 movies and a meal. I'm talking the Movies and a Meal podcast. This show is great. It's brought to you by Keith, Brad, and Ben, and each week they bring a new movie to the table, which they all discuss as a group. And it's not, your highfalutin movies. It's What We Do in the Shadows, The Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, and Out of Sight. It's Bad Education, Ghost Rider, and A View to a Kill. It's X-Men Last Stand, Queen Sugar, The Mandalorian, and Major League 2. They are a lot of fun to listen to. You guys know Ben. It's our friend Ben Pensarga. He was a guest on Joe and Joe. In fact, Ben was the very first remote guest that I ever had on this podcast, so he's always got a special place in my heart. I'm really digging this. I just started listening to it last week. It is a lot of fun. They bring a guest in. The guest, I listened to their Heathers episode. They were joined by Kelly, and she went in depth on her favorite movie, which was Heathers, and it made me want to go watch Heathers to watch with them. I really dig it. So guys, find them out there at Movies and a Meal, Twitter, Instagram. Their website is moviesandameal.podbean.com. They put out 1 episode a week. Give them a listen, guys. Support them. Let them know Joe on Joe sent you. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. It is quite entertaining. And now back to the show. Awesome. And absolutely give them a listen. I don't know what you're doing right now. Well, I do know what you're doing right now. You're listening to this podcast. When you're done with this podcast, I want you to go online. I want you to subscribe to Movies and a Meal podcast, and then I want you to go to Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and I want you to say hi to me at Joe on Joe Pod, or send me an email to joeandjoepod@gmail.com. Let me know what you think of the show, and let me know how excited you are for all this great G.I. Joe stuff that's coming our way, man. We got the Snake Eyes movie coming out. We got new toys. We got movie-centric toys. There's movie-style toys in the classified line. I think I saw that. Did I see that? Or was it just movie-style toys on the bubble card back, but they're the same size? I don't know. Either way, I'm excited. Snake Eyes is here. He's going to be here soon. Before then, we're getting a Fast and the Furious. That's always exciting. I mean, come on now. And before that, though, we're always going to start with this segment.
You were saying?
And we're going to look at comic books that were on the rack the same month that G.I. Joe number 82 was. In this case, we're talking about January of 1989. So cast your mind way back and look at Marvel Comics and say, Marvel Comics, what were you saying in 1989? And I'll tell you what they were saying. They were saying Spider-Man number 311 with Todd McFarlane giving us his rendition of the villainous classic villain, Mysterio. This is that fabulous cover with Spider-Man reflected in Mysterio's bubble and Mysterio's hands pointing out to us, all McFarlane-esque. It's part of the Inferno crossover. Solid run. Those McFarlane issues are always going to hold their value. So if you're a comic collector, you could still get these for relatively cheap, probably around $10 a piece. get these, hold on to them, just put them away somewhere because they're always going to gain value. And then one day, flip it for double what you paid. They're always going to gain value with that. Let's see here. Captain America number 349. And Cap, it's the new Cap, John Walker. Or was he? I always forget, and I said this a million times on the show. First, he started as Johnny Walker, and what's the other whiskey? The other was Jack Daniels. So I think he might have been still Jack Daniels. He might not have changed yet to John Walker. But he's got Battlestar at his side. And if you saw the TV show, things don't end well for Battlestar. But it's really good. This is a fun book for PC players. That's right. I said PC, personal computer gamers. Picture 1989, 14-year-old Joe. I just had gotten my Hewlett Packard. Was it Hewlett Packard? No. Packard Bell. Pardon me. It was a Packard Bell computer. That was our first computer in the house. I don't remember the specs, but I know that it did not have a hard drive. It just had the 5.25 inch, or was it 5.5? Yeah, 5.25 inch drives. That's all. That's what you ran your operating system on. And I went to, I believe at the time it would have been a Babbage's, the computer store, corner on 95th and Ridgeland. And on the shelf, there was a game for the PC, and all the instructions on the back, all the technical specs where it said you had it required to play this game. Everything seemed to match. So I ran up to my mom and said, Mom, it's Amazing Spider-Man and Captain America in Dr. Doom's Revenge, put out by Paragon Software. Anyone out there in this world play this. It is awesome. I absolutely loved it. It was a side scroller. You either played as Spider-Man or as Cap, and you went through dungeon levels of Dr. Doom's dungeon. I believe Arcade was running it, so he was somehow involved. And the reason I bring this up is because the comic book is listed as being published this month. The comic book was only available inside the PC case. Remember, the PC games used to come in giant square cases, right? So you could fit a comic book in there. And so it's a full-size comic. I still have it. I think I still have the floppy disks for the game. There were some games that I know I kept my disks for just because I was like, I know I'll never play them. They're probably missing pieces, like it's probably like corrupted data files. But this was one of those games, man. I played this a ton. The other one was, X-Men was, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm sorry. X-Men was the one. There was X-Men and like Arcade's Revenge. That was the other one that put out by Paragon. And, they were great. They were so much fun. So I don't know if anyone out there listening, if you guys played any of these, but the Spider-Man, Dr. Doom, Spider-Man, Captain America, and Dr. Doom's Revenge, I played a ton of. So that was this month apparently. So that's a whole lot of fun. Takes me back a ton. Another book here is Iron Man 238, and it's the new look Iron Man. Remember, after Armor Wars, he got the new suit, and he's fighting, I believe that's the Rhino in a wall of fire. And if I recall correctly, I had like 3 copies of this book because they gave them away at the summer convention that year at like Chicago Comic-Con. They were giving away a bunch of copies, and I believe that was the comic. So I think I had like 3 or 4 copies of that. That's awesome. Marvel Comics Presents is on number 11, and it's the Rick Leonardi illustrated Colossus story, which I don't think I appreciated at the time, but I think in retrospect it's really, really good. It's called God's Country, and I remember being a big Colossus fan when I first was introduced to him, which would have been right around this time. So I think that was one of my formative introductions to him. But I bring up Marvel Comics Presents because it's going to come in later. With one of the new creators that we have on G.I. Joe 82. So keep that book in mind. It's an exciting book to keep in the back of your head. Let's see, what else we got here this month? A lot of bunch of New Mutants, or not New Mutants, New Universe stuff, pardon me. Starbrand 17, Strikeforce Morituri 25. Squadron Supreme, The Death of the Universe. This is an OGN, original graphic novel. I just read this for the first time when I recently read the Squadron Omnibus, and they collected this in there. I never knew that this was the fate of this team. I had read the 12-issue miniseries, and it was great, by Mark Grunwald. And I, as a collector, had never gotten this Squadron Supreme graphic novel, and it picked up immediately after that. and the aftermath of their world basically being destroyed. And when you read it in the omnibus, boy, it's bleak. It's bleak times for the Squadron Supreme, but well worth a read. X-Men 240 Inferno is in full effect. Full effect Inferno is. Same thing over at X Factor 36. And Exterminators number 4, they're wrapping up that miniseries. That was them trying to give a like a little miniseries to the kids that were hanging out with X Factor at the time. Like Richter and Boom Boom, Artie and Leech. And then they had that little kid who he was wheelchair bound, and he could then control the wheelchair, and he could make like robots with it, and like his mutant power was like control mechanics. I forget what his name was, but Exterminators number 4 wrapped up, and that also was an Inferno tie-in. So Inferno's heating up, as they like to say. So now we're gonna go on to DC Comics.
You were saying?
And remember, we're going to skip movies for another month or so until we get caught up, so that our movie month is going to be the same as the month that these comics were actually on sale, not just the removed from sale date, which is what we're kind of talking about here. But all these comics were on the shelf at the same time together. Again, back to action, my critique of cover choices for Action Comics Weekly, 32 years later, we start with the scintillating Blackhawks. We do get Green Lantern, which that's a draw. It's a legit draw. And then I don't even know who's on. We got Superman and Green Lantern on the cover, but they're beaten, so I don't know who these. I can't see who the featured cover people are. It's more Blackhawks. Oh, okay, yeah. So Blackhawks get 2 covers this month, and then the Phantom Lady. And if the Phantom Lady's not enough of a draw, Wild Dog, the Demon, Speedy, and half of a picture of Superman to draw you into Action Comics Weekly. And then the next issue, there was actually 5 weeks this month, and you also get another Speedy. So if the if the prevailing wisdom is a cover draws those people in, prevailing wisdom failed this month. 420 Batman 429, the Death in the Family. It's the final issue. It's the one where the Joker, using his diplomatic immunity for the fake Iraq state. I think it was Kandak, whatever the fake state was that they made him a diplomat in the book. He shows up at the UN. It's a wild ending, by the way, written Jim Starlin, right? Jim Starlin wrote Death in the Family. Yeah. It's a wild ending to such a personal story of murdering Robin. That Batman fighting the Joker as a UN delegate is really crazy and insane. By the way, recently spotted at Golden Apple Comics, Jim Starlin, the master himself, doing a shot for a web series thing that's going to be showing up soon. Not Golden Apple web series, but they shot at Golden Apple, and he autographed a newer Thanos reprint book that he wasn't pleased they didn't use him on, like, his art on the cover, which to be honest, I agree with you. I don't like the artwork they did choose for the cover, but he chose to sign the Thanos on the crotch purposely, and it was absolutely hilarious. So awesome. Jim Starlin, 1 peg up in my esteem. Thank you very much. Cosmic Odyssey continues with issue number 2. Batman fighting the Hawks in an Invasion crossover. Remember we talked about Invasion last month. $5.95. So the same month that Invasion was going on, and Cosmic Odyssey, and Death in the Family. That's all in the same month, like 2-month span. That's a lot of action over at DC. That's really exciting. Flash is he's dealing with the Manhunters in an Invasion aftermath. Or actually just Manhunter, not Manhunters, just Manhunter, singular Manhunter. See, Hawk and Dove, I believe that was an Invasion crossover too, with Hawk going all military. Invasion does wrap up with issue number 3. Justice League had Invasion crossovers. Power of the Atom was one too, because remember that Atom was best friends with Carter Hall, and Carter Hall, being Hawkman, his planet invaded Earth. So the Atom was torn, like, have I been friends with with the traitor this whole time? Plus wrinkle in the concept of post-crisis Hawkman being very questionable continuity-wise. No one really knew where he was yet. So Power of the Atom is actually a pretty cool crossover with Invasion. And we'll wrap up DC with probably the most important book, unless I scroll down and there's something like Action #1 in here. But the most important book, of course, this month, the same month as G.I. Joe 82 hit the stands, you also may have perused a little book that launched 1,000 ships called Sandman. Volume 2, #1, The Master of Dreams by Neil Gaiman himself. Guys, this is the book that started it all. It's rocketing, by the way, rocketing up the back issue charts. If you've not gotten your hands on Sandman, get it quickly, because when they do finally do some adaptation of it, this book will shoot up, because it's already been growing very quickly in the last 5 years. But yeah, it's Sandman, the whole Morpheus, the dreaming, his sister death, that whole thing. That all started in Sandman #1. Dirty little secret, listeners. Never read it. Technically I've read Sandman 1. I've read the first trade, and I didn't dig it. I didn't dig it when I was of age. I didn't dig it, when I was 15, 16 in high school and stuff. I wasn't, my joke is like, I was not that emo, at the time. Like, I wasn't into it. And then as I've tried to get into it as an adult, it just doesn't grab me in the way that I think it should. I promise you, I'm going to get through it. I'm going to read Sandman at some point, but it's my dirty little secret. Never read Sandman, all of it, really. I've read bits and pieces, and I get the gist. What's really crazy, what I do love about it, is Sandman starts firmly rooted in the DC universe. Because, Sandman, Wesley Dodds, the Golden Age superhero that fought with the Justice Society. And then there was the version that Jack Kirby did in the 70s that this totally keeps in continuity. So when they started Sandman here, there was no Vertigo publications. It was just a part of DC. So Superman and the Justice League, they show up in one of these early issues. Sandman is a part of the DC universe. So when they do make that shift to Vertigo, it's just kind of like they just don't mention it anymore. And then it just goes all Vertigo. But yeah, technically Sandman is a part. And in the years since, they've brought it back. So they had Death appear in an issue of Action Comics right before one of the big anniversary ones. I think right before 800. And it was Death was on the cover, and it was a big deal because that was the first time really that Vertigo was starting to get folded back into the mainstream universe. So little tidbits of knowledge for you guys, and that was it.
You were saying.
That's right, Stalker. I just played DJ on that. So this is all exciting because G.I. Joe 82 is fun. It picks up. It doesn't pick up after last issue, which makes last issue's ending really, really abrupt then. So let's jump into it. G.I. Joe 82.
Now, mass is ready.
We've got a cover by Ron Wagner and Bob McLeod. It's a cool cover. Mike, the colors on this. Now, I was talking about last issue. I was talking about how much I enjoy the colors, and I do, and I did. And the colors on my comic are washed out, but it might be because my comic somehow sat in the sun. I genuinely don't think so, though. I think this just had a more washed out color tone to it. When I look at this book online, let's go here. Let's go back to that issue. Yeah, like the color tone kind of matches what they were just going for a more subdued blue, and more, I don't want to say pastel because it's not really pastel, but just whatever that tone, like shift in color tone is. So this cover is less is just it's more subdued, I think, for it. But it's cool. It's got a Viper sneaking up behind Repeater as he's taking shots in the field. It's cool. It's got an all black background, so you're set at night. I love seeing the Viper up close. The detail on him is great. And he's stalking Repeater with a trench knife, poised, ready to stab him. It's good. It's a strong cover. It's also a strong cover choice. I'll say this because Repeater's a new character. You know, this is the introduction of Repeater to the team. Same with Budo and Lightfoot. And then there's a bunch of other Joes that flunk out in this. So, like, to have him on the cover like this, featured like this, is, I think it's strong because it doesn't necessarily, he's not a stalwart of the team. You know what I mean? It's not Flint or Duke or somebody that comic reader collector might not necessarily know. Like, he would have been a new character on the shelves at the time. So it's a cool choice, and I like it. I think that I always thought it was Leatherneck, you know, but it's obviously not Leatherneck. But like you think it's Gung Ho or something. But no, it's New Joe Repeater. So let's get into it.
Yo, Joe!
Weeding Out. Script by Larry Hama. Now Marshall Rogers is back. The legend is back he pencils pages 1 through 6, and we've got a new penciler. It's Don Hudson, and he pencils pages 7 through 22. Randy Emberlin on inks, Rick Parker on lettering, Bob Sharon coloring, Bobby Chase editor, and Tom DeFalco editor in chief. And I want to take a moment to recognize Don Hudson, who is, as you could see in this book, a talent. His pencils follow the standards or the style that Marshall Rogers lays out in the beginning of this, which is great, and his job, you know, because you want him to have it be a unified book. Don Hudson worked on a ton of books over the years. He did a lot of inking. He inked a ton of issues of Nick Fury, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's a bunch of Web of Spider-Mans. He did a lot of Marvel Comics Presents. And he did these early ones. He did work on issue 11, which also came out this month. And most of the stuff that I see with him, he did a lot of ink work, which is great. And it's how a lot of people get into the industry. You know, he worked on Secret Defenders. He worked on Daredevil, Silver Surfer, Punisher, War Journal, Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme, Spidey 2099, Avengers West Coast, Iron Man, Excalibur. He was all over the place. So kudos to Don Hudson, man. I like his stuff. I think it fits really well. I think we see one more instance of his work on G.I. Joe, if my research played out, and it was not until that issue with Megatron, of all people, the Megatron issue with his face on the cover and you know, like Cobra Commander standing next to his giant face. I think that's the next thing Don Hudson graces the pages of G.I. Joe. But welcome to G.I. Joe, Mr. Don Hudson. We appreciate you. So this is it's a story called Weeding Out. It opens in a remote and seemingly unused section of Fort Dix, New Jersey. And we get Duke and Zap. And this is Larry's take on that traditional Private Benjamin, Stripes, you know, first half of Stripes, first half of Full Metal Jacket, rookie, Pete, what do you call that? Basic training. That's the right words. Basic training section, you know, of soldiers. And he's showing us this is what G.I. Joe goes through when you're getting intro to the team, which is about time. We're 82 issues in. We've never really been shown this, you know, in this kind of detail. And I love it. This is great. And very much like the movies we talked about with, you know, Private Benjamin and Stripes and Full Metal Jacket, where like that first half is in basic training and then the second half is them on a mission. That's what happens in this issue. I think it's wonderful. I think the basic training stuff for me is always really interesting in those movies. It is very interesting in this book as well. I tend to enjoy that more because you like to see, hey, they did it in the Captain America movie too, you know. You kind of like to see the people, you know, like not fail, but like you would like to see them fail, but you know, like the struggle, right? The struggle to overcome and to find it within themselves. And certainly some people wash out and some people don't. So Zap and Duke are waking up, and there's a lot of recruits here. It's not just guys that would eventually have their own actual action figures as G.I. Joes. There's a whole bunch of recruits here. So they give it the old rise and shine, you know, fall out in 5 minutes, you know, and Zap is helping Duke. This is interesting. I always thought that this was the role of Beachhead and, frankly, Sergeant Slaughter. So to see Duke and Zap, one, love seeing Zap used, and I always love seeing Duke used, so no complaints about who is being used. But I thought that was an interesting choice to put these guys in this position. So Zap is, banging his stick on the edges of the bed and everything. And they're telling everybody, get up. And the one dude who I don't even know his name, let's see if we can look real close here. Hold on. No, you can't really tell. He just kind of says, it can't be time to get up already. And he complains, we just came off a 20-mile forced march less than 2 hours ago. And Duke lets him have it. What's your name, Slick? Oh, on second thought, I don't want to know the name of any weak, spoiled, sissy, unmotivated, underachieving, whining crybaby, ex-G.I. Joe trainee washed out. Zap, remove this worthless loser from our roster and cut him some orders to the nastiest place you can think of, Thule, Greenland, or Fez, Morocco. So this guy gets kicked out. So here's my question. First question I have in this book. If you wash out of the most difficult and challenging basic training, right? Program. You washed out of the most challenging program in the military, which I'm assuming is G.I. Joe, right? You got your Navy SEALs, but the Navy SEALs, they want to become G.I. Joe members, right? So in this world, G.I. Joe is the biggest and the best. If you wash out for whatever reason, in this case, the guy was upset because he was a little tired, you get punished by getting exiled. It's not just that you don't get to be a G.I. Joe, and you can go back to whatever highly trained unit you probably already came from, because the only reason you're here is because you were at the top of your class in, let's say the Navy SEALs or, what have you. But if you upset Duke, you get kicked off to Greenland? That feels like some hardcore Cobra level punishment. And and I like it, but it is hardcore.
Yo, Joe!
So now we get to see all these guys, and I adore that Marshall Rogers drew in so many recruits, and I'm sure Larry asked him to. So we've got people named Jody. Let's see here. Hold on, let me bring this real close. Buster, Budo, No Show, Lightfoot, Repeater. Now, Lightfoot, Repeater, and Budo, of course, we know become Joes. Funky, and we'll see. There's probably a couple others that we see throughout the issue, but then there's a lot more in the background. So they all get nicknames before they get washed out. So my question on that is, do those nicknames get recycled? What if Funky washes out, which he certainly does, but someone else comes along and they're like, you look like a Funky. Do they just give him the nickname, or how does that work? I thought you didn't get your nicknames until you actually graduated the team, but we're seeing here, you get your nicknames when you go to basic training. I'm here for that. That's exciting. Now, we also learn that, and this is Lightfoot saying it, we started training with over 200 guys in this training cycle. Now we're down to less than 50. That's a higher attrition rate than Ranger School. That's so cool. Again, I love all these details. And Duke is just laying it on thick. Calling them a disgraceful looking crew. On my command, you will start doing push-ups. So this all relates to me being absolutely exhausted after seeing people this weekend. I think this book took it out of me too. Start doing push-ups, and anyone who stops is out of the program. And so now we see that Lightfoot and Repeater and Budo are they're in this final panel, and they're chatting together. And this is a nice way to say, it's to warm us up to the fact that these are the three you got to keep a lookout for. Don't worry about Funky, don't worry about Jody, and don't worry about No Show, because they're not going to be vital today.
Yo, Joe!
Later, great piece of drawing the sun with that heat ripple effect on it, just to show us how exhausted these guys are and how much they're working in the hot sun. 249 push-ups. And there's a few guys that are certainly dead on the ground. They're saying, why don't you diehards give up? Duke's never going to come back from breakfast. You're going to be doing push-ups till you croak. We got Blister. Now, I thought it said Buster, but I'm wrong. It's Blister. Blister is in blister pack. That's fun. Blister is doing 250. So Blister made it. Bad News is here. Funky survived. Now so now they go on their they stop doing the push-ups and they immediately go on a PT run, right? these guys also getting punished. So Zap is telling him, you losers had better get a move on if you want to draw your cold weather gear before shipping out. Why are they punished for washing out? It just seems so hard. It just seems so difficult.
Yo, Joe!
So the guys that survived, they get to go have some food. So now Grand Slam is here, and I like that they're using the old Joes for these jobs. It makes total sense. Calls them low lives. Hope you guys appreciate this. And this is page 6. This is the last page of Marshall Rogers doing the artwork. One of them looks like it's might be Ice Pick or maybe Desperado. No, I don't think it's Ice Pick. It's the guy behind him. He calls it, mystery meat on a shingle. And I thought Roadblock was a good cook, but apparently he chooses not to. So they give him some, mystery meat on a shingle being just a piece of toast or bread. And Grand Slam's upset. Like, you're not going to be sick in my nice mess hall. And they're even being told how to eat properly, like right shoulder forks, port forks, insert food, like doing it commence chewing in cadence, which I really dig. 1, 2, 3 shift molars. 1, 2, 3 chewing, halt, swallow. Funky is down with it. Funky's a bald man, by the way. So that might have been, there's Lightfoot. Yeah, I don't know who it was complaining about the mystery meat. We can't see his name on the shirt.
Yo, Joe!
Now later, they get to run in the 95-degree heat. And I don't know how long they've been running, but they only have 16 more miles to get to the next training area. That's all there is to it. So 16 miles later, we find, and this is just a great piece of brilliance, and actually a really nice piece of storytelling they're doing on this. They're keeping that heat sun in the images whenever they're outside. They're making sure that they draw the sun with all the heat waves coming off it to remind us that every time they're doing something, they're getting ravaged by the heat. That's a real nice piece of continuity. Now, so we had Marshall Rogers on pencils 1 through 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So actually, I think even though this is technically page 8, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is Marshall Rogers' last page. So if you're following along, this is Marshall's last page of pencils. And I love this gag that Larry has them doing. Their next hurdle they have to overcome is a 6-hour driver safety series that they have to sit in this hot room and watch. And they've already seen it 3 times already. So they know the drill of what they're up to here. And this is now a mental physical challenge. And by the way, I think we just lost fan favorite Funky because he's, as the bald guy, he breaks down. You don't see his shirt, so I don't know exactly if it's Funky, but I believe it's meant to be Funky. When he sees that they're doing the driver safety film, he breaks down in just anguish and says, "Not again, I give up. There's still time to make that plane to Thule. I'm going to haul that loser away." So goodbye, Funky. We hardly knew ye.
Yo, Joe!
And now this is Don Hudson's pencils. And I think they very much keep in line with the Marshall Rogers stuff. I wonder if maybe Rogers did loose layouts or something for the rest of the issue, and then he took over. Just because there is really strong continuity between the styles. So we see that the trick to this is if one single solitary trainee falls asleep, everyone will be required to watch the whole thing all over again. Even if you make it to the last 5 minutes of the first showing, and anybody who falls asleep is, of course, out of the G.I. Joe program. So we've got guys Lightfoot's propping open his eyelids. It's 2 hours, 3 hours into it. 4 hours into it is the best because you have on screen from the driver safety video footage of just a man in a burning car dying. That's awesome. Real footage, and as Duke says, real footage of actual traffic fatalities should wake everyone up. We see Ice Pick is starting to, his eyelids are starting to droop, and Bad News is kind of waking him up, saying, pull yourself together, we're down to the last hour.
Yo, Joe!
So it's nice to see Joe's helping each other out. So it looks like they kind of made it through that one okay. So now we're at a sand pit. And everybody into the sand pit, and they've got those pugilistic sticks, those pugil sticks. And the idea is that it's a melee, every man for himself. Any man left standing at the end of the hour will remain in the program. So the goal here is to beat your fellow soldiers into submission. This all feels very Cobra. I'm just throwing this out there. It's not like they're not regulating by, say, points or, any kind of measured combat. It is, you go into that sand pit, you fight for an hour, and if Duke sees any slacking off or being nice, he wants to see some bashing with heart. And they proceed to beat each other down with these sticks for the next hour without any kind of, structure, rules, what have you.
Yo, Joe!
Because I guess Cobra doesn't have rules. Hey, by the way, speaking of this, on this opposing page, you too can fly a Top Gun plane with a real engine power modeled airplane. Hold on tight. The Cox .049, 49 millimeter, 49, however you pronounce it, engine powered Top Gun will give you an awesome thrill. Fuel your engine, flip the propeller, and the powerful Cox 49 engine roars to life. Radical thrust accelerates the Top Gun forward. Then, just like the new U.S. Navy Top Gun fighter pilot, you take the handle. You're grasping and pull back. The control line activates the elevator, and your Top Gun takes off. You are airborne. This is an ad for one of those string-controlled and jet or fuel powered airplanes. So if you're not familiar with this, think of a radio control airplane with an actual fuel powered engine, but no radio control parts. There were just a series of strings, I believe just 2 strings, and you held a handle grip in your one hand, and if you pulled like backwards, like your thumb, if you pulled like your thumb towards your body, the plane would, on that string because it would be at full tension, the string you'd be pulling the ailerons back in a way that the plane would climb. And if you put your pinky towards your body, like down, it then would dip. That's the concept of these planes. I was given one of these planes for Christmas or a birthday or something like that. Not a Top Gun model or something else. And it was ignominious to be kind to my very brief. I've always had a fascination with flying, and with flying RC planes and paper planes and model planes, and I love it. I love the idea of it. I've always wanted to get into it. And this is my earliest experience with it, and it burned me on it for so long. I got one of these with the ropes, with the strings. First, we got it running, and I was very wary of chopping my fingers off too, so I didn't want that to happen. So we got it running in the driveway, but we didn't. No one understood, me or there was an adult with me, I believe. No one understood the concept of the strings and what the strings did. Like, we didn't understand how they worked. So we started it in the driveway, and it just started taking off, and that was awkward. So then we didn't touch it for a few months, and then I finally was like, all right, I want to try this again. We took it to a field near my house, a schoolyard, open area, plenty of room, and we set it up, and we're like, all right, I've read the instructions. I think I know how this works. And you just stand, and it's basically going to spin. You're going to spin in a circle, and you're going to watch your plane go up and down. So we get it going. Plane, in my excitement to see it, I completely lose control of going up or down with the thing. I sent it straight up in the air and immediately straight down, where upon impact it shattered, And the nose cone, I never found the nose cone. I looked everywhere for it. I was heartbroken, and I think you needed the nose cone to keep the propellers on or something. Couldn't find the nose cone. Put it away again for another few months. 6 months later, we were at a hobby shop. I'm like, all right, let's do it this time. Let's buy a nose cone. I get it home. The nose cone is 2 sizes too large. And we never took it out to fly again. And it then proceeded to sit in my mom's basement. And I'm not lying. For the next 20 years. Till eventually, I would have been in my mid-30s. I was at my mom's house. And I finally said, you know what? I don't think I'm ever going to fly that plane. So you too can fly a Top Gun plane directly into the ground. Now, this page of G.I. Joe, Back to the Action, is great because while it is, just unadulterated beating on people, we get to see Budo in action. And actually, that's who they focus on. It's in the final 3 panels. You can't tell as much because you can't see the name on the chest. But the top 3, it's clear that they're showing us that Budo is a master of martial arts because he's absolutely holding his own. He's fighting a dude. Who's this dude's name? Slam Dance. That guy's name is Slam Dance. I believe that man's name is Slam Dance. That Budo just whips on, and he just crushes everybody.
Yo, Joe!
And 1 hour later, there are 3 men standing. Lightfoot, Repeater, and Budo, who, of course, were part of the toy line that year. The others are presumably dead. They're just literally left laying there in the sand. There's a car to pick them up. CoverGirl's driving it. They don't have to run. They're all surprised by that. They're sure that they're being fooled, that Duke's pulling one over on them. The other recruits are just laying in the sand, face down in the sand. I believe that's Repeater in the front seat, just laying like, this is heaven. Are we home free? They all think, did we made it? Like, hooray for it. These guys are just beaten down to the ground. I like the CoverGirl glamour shot that we get there.
Yo, Joe!
And when they get home, it is the real food. It's not the crap on the shingle, the chip beef on the shingle thing. Roadblock has genuinely made steak and roast pheasant and lobster for them. Someone doesn't trust it. I think who is that? It's Lightfoot, actually. Lightfoot is saying that he doesn't trust it. Something is wrong about this. I've been around the Army long enough to know that this is not a part of the program. But these guys all go to town, Budo, Lightfoot, and Repeater, and they all eat a ton of this pheasant and lobster tail and steak, and all is great. You get the fun comedy panel after that of their bellies all bloated out. And Duke's genuinely being nice to them. They get a night's sleep. He says, go to sleep. Like but someone isn't trusting them. And it's Repeater now who isn't trusting them. So it was Lightfoot in the previous panel. And now it's actually shifted to Repeater. So I wonder if that was on purpose or, but it's, I believe it's Budo telling him, you're just being paranoid, lighten up. I'm just, I'm about to catch some primo rack time, and they're actually going to sleep. So these guys made it to the G.I. Joe team. They finally did it.
Yo, Joe!
Shortly, the other shoe drops, right? So you hear the whoop 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 of a helicopter, and down you see this bottom panel. It's a pretty nicely, a little cartoonishly rendered, but a nicely rendered Tomahawk. And the doors fly open, and it's Zap and Duke, and they're saying, full gear, full field gear. We're moving out. This is the real thing. Zap says it's the real thing. We'll be on the flight line in 5 minutes. Move it, move it, move it. So now we actually see these guys in their full action figure Joe costumes for the first time. So they're actually dressed like they normally do. Budo, Repeater, and what am I thinking? Why am I saying Lifeline? Budo, Repeater, and Lightfoot. That's it, Lightfoot. So they actually look like they do. So they all of a sudden they got their costumes. And they jump on board this Tomahawk. And to the reader, we're supposed to believe that this is also part of their training too.
Yo, Joe!
So on the Tomahawk, we see everyone kind of getting kitted out. And that includes Duke and CoverGirl. It's all the Joes we've seen already. That might be Doc there as well. I can't really tell. And Repeater says this is too convenient to be anything but a simulation. He knew they were being set up. Steelers on the Tomahawk, and he's asking for a sit rep update. And all they're being told is that the Picatinny Arsenal is under attack by unknown forces. So they don't know anything. So the Joe's job is to go in there and find out. They're going to be the first recon on the site. So Lightfoot says, they're going in blind. Budo has something to say about that. Repeater has something to say about it. And Repeater, again, is the skeptic. So now they're really leaning into Repeater being the skeptic here.
Yo, Joe!
And they land at the Picatinny Arsenal, the United States Army Proving Ground. I'm assuming that's a real joint. The three new Joes leave with Grand Slam, and they secure the exit while the rest of the Joes continue on to the main building. So it's Grand Slam with the new guys. They're in the dark. They don't really know what's going on. And remember, they're playing recon on this whole thing. So they some nice dark nighttime illustrating here. It's very it's more McFarlane-esque, I would say. A little more toward, if you guys remember when we talked about when McFarlane was on here, where he was drawing them a little more comic booky, than some of the traditional Joe artists do. In this case, Grand Slam kind of taking a traditional comic book pose in this middle panel. And everyone in general, everyone's got this. Don Hudson apparently likes to put everyone in the camera at all times, which requires a little bit of play with the scale of things. You know what I mean? So there's so they look good. They do look. This issue definitely takes a lean more towards this traditional superhero comic.
Yo, Joe!
So Lightfoot's looking for some booby traps. Repeater doesn't believe him, and while they're out there, they hear that that the other Joes are under, quote, heavy fire from elements of what appears to be a Cobra assault team. So I don't think these guys still believe it until you get to the final panel and Grand Slam actually gets shot right in front of Budo. The radio gets shot out too, which is convenient so that they can't really communicate with the rest of the team. And these Joes know that they mean business.
Yo, Joe!
And out of the woods comes this whole phalanx of Cobra Vipers. And so they say spread out, flank the Joes, and sanitize the area. So now these guys know that they're not fooling. And Repeater gets up, and Repeater's got that great, that mounted gun, like they used in the movie Predator. So he gets out there, and it's go help Budo with Grand Slam. He keeps the snake's head down as he just fires off hundreds and hundreds of rounds into the trees to keep the Cobras away. And they know that they need to keep the Cobras away keep the Cobras from taking the road, because if they do, then they'll be able to escape at the payload. So these three dudes have to stop them at all costs from getting away.
Yo, Joe!
And Budo gives command to Repeater, gives him seniority. He must have, probably because he's older, maybe been in the service longer or something like that. And so then Repeater hears that, and he starts barking out orders. He sends Budo to some of the flank, and he also sends. So he's going to keep the main body busy, and so then Lightfoot must be taking that other flank. And here comes the Cobra attackers in the truck that they're expecting the Vipers that our three main Joes are fighting to have, quote, cleared the secure the crossroad for us. And so if our guys are successful, this truck that they've now drawn in the middle panel, that truck will be stopped. And if that truck gets through, then our Joes have failed. That's kind of the premise that we're dealing with here. Lightfoot has set up some anti-personnel mines with delayed timers. He's doing his action figure thing. He's doing his mind thing, which is great. Even he says this is pretty realistic for a simulation, isn't it? And I like Repeater's answer of that's not funny. In other words, everyone's on board here. And for the reader, we need to know that they're all on board. And that's really what's important about those two panels.
Yo, Joe!
So we have a nice overhead shot to kind of keep us in play as to who's who and who's where. Even if it makes it feel a little condensed. It feels a little small to see all these. I mean, I feel like if they were really all this close, everyone would just be dead. But having them this close, you have to get this close because one of your guys on the Joe side, one of your characters that you're featuring is Budo. And Budo's a hand-to-hand fighter, right? So you need him to go hand-to-hand with some of these Vipers, and he certainly does. And this is an echo of the page that we had earlier in the issue when they were fighting with the pugil sticks, where Budo beat everybody. That's what this page, this is a callback to that. So we know he can handle himself, and he certainly does. He takes out four Vipers right there, and then he's heading towards two more. So Budo can handle himself, and I really like this callback to the pit fight from earlier.
Yo, Joe!
So now this truck with the nameless Vipers, I'm throwing this out there too. I also like that this is a mission without a Cobra lead. And in doing so, we don't have to spend a lot of time with the Cobra lead. We don't have to balance it with, let's just throw it out there and say it was Zorana. What Zorana was doing and her subplot, whatever. They're just faceless Vipers. So as a reader, I don't feel I need to know anything here. What we get of their interactions is enough because they're just Vipers. I like that a lot. I don't know if that was intentional. Obviously, everything's intentional when you put it together at the end of the day. But if the intent is knowing that you're not having a featured Cobra member, you don't have to spend time with their motivations and their thing because it's not about their personality. It's about their chess pieces, and in this case of being Vipers. So that's all we care about. I think it totally works for this, and I don't know how many more stories of G.I. Joe adventures we have like this, where it is just the Joes versus a bunch of nameless soldiers, where it's just focusing on the one side. But I like this change of pace, I really do. And we see Budo just going to town on some more people here. We also get one of Lightfoot's delayed mines goes off, really just decimating a couple of Vipers. They're dead. They're awesome. They're dead.
Yo, Joe!
We do get interrupted by a bullpen's bulletin. The quote of the month is, "Boy, the best way to keep a fantastic secret is to tell everyone." Then nobody believes it. That's from Solar Man #1. That was a forgettable comic book. I do believe I have that one. So now, after we've seen on the previous page, we've seen Budo highlighted. Then we saw Lightfoot being highlighted with his mines. Now we're getting Repeater being highlighted as he goes nuts on he goes full hog on this incoming truck, and he just fills it full of lead. And while he's doing that, Repeater jumps onto this truck, and he starts tussling with them, right, trying to stop the drivers of the truck and everything. But when they're doing that, one of those Cobra transport choppers flies overhead. Now, Don Hudson being a new artist, the chopper looks familiar but different. I like it. It looks really cool. It looks kind of like a giant airborne crab monster or something that's going to come down and pick up this truck.
Yo, Joe!
We also get an ad for the I was way into this. The Marvel Action Universe. It premiered on October 1st through the 2nd. And it was where they showed Spider-Man and his amazing friends, RoboCop, and Dino Riders. Man, anything called Marvel and like an hour and a half of Marvel cartoons, even if it was just half hour of Spider-Man, I was in, man. I was all into it. I used to watch the RoboCop. Dino Riders were cool. Marvel Action Universe. There was also a couple issues of comic book that came out around that time. So on the Joe side, Lightfoot gets kicked off. But if you look very closely, look at what his left hand is doing. His left hand is very important. It's on top of the roof of this truck. He gets kicked off. He tears this Viper's shirt with him. And this is important. we see that the Cobra Viper had under his tunic an Iron Grenadier uniform. What does that mean? I don't know, but it's going to come into play later, I hope. And even they say, what difference does it make? It was Cobra or Destro. As long as they're getting away with the weapons, they're very upset. Repeater is firing off into the night, but the helicopter has swooped down and picked up the truck.
Yo, Joe!
And on the last page, here comes their Tomahawk. That's been shot up too. Duke says they managed to stop the main body. It's too bad you new guys couldn't stop that truck, which is a little, it's a little like, hey, buddy, you're the new guys. You guys sucked. But better late than never. Lightfoot just happened to have one of those time delay mines left over. And the helicopter with all the Vipers / Grenadiers / Cobra Troopers flying the helicopter, they all explode in the sky and they all die. And Duke says, good job, Lightfoot. Lightfoot, clean sweep for the Joe team. No, Duke, clean sweep is another guy. And so you still think this was a setup, Repeater? Well, it could have been. They could have tricked Destro into setting this up by leaking information. Come on, it's possible. It's a fun little tag, whether or not he still thinks it's a setup. For what I think is a phenomenal issue, it's a great issue and something that we've never seen. Her down and dirty boot camp for G.I. Joe and what it takes to become a member of the Joe team. I loved it. I don't know if you guys feel the same way. Reach out and let me know. I think I like this issue. I forgot about it. It's the first time I've read it probably since I got it. It's really solid. Now, before we retire this issue, we're going to check out the post box, The Pit. I need to come up with a snappy soundbite for it, but until then, we're just going to go with
Yo, Joe!
another Yo Joe. Now, we've got letters here. And we got letters from John Johnson in Portland, Connecticut, Justin Blaze from Middlebury, Vermont, David Martin from Beckley, West Virginia, D. Wiggins from Charlotte, North Carolina, Michael Lake from Falls Church, Virginia. So does any of these guys, if you're out there listening, reach out, let me know. Now, the reason I skipped one here is because this is very important. I just I want to specifically call out this letter from a Jeff the Lone Wolf Lacassi from Lompoc, California. Now, if you're out there, Jeff, God bless you. Now, the Lone Wolf starts his letter with, when friends of mine are looking through my comic collection. First of all, Lone Wolf, I thought you were the Lone Wolf. Why do you have friends going through your comic collection? Saying it's incongruous, and I don't like it. Either you're a lone wolf or you're friends that go through your comic collection. But he often will tell them that the G.I. Joes are my little brothers. But the fact is, I enjoy G.I. Joe each and every month. Larry Hama's done an excellent job creating a cast of characters that are fascinating and unpredictable. He just finished issue 75. He can't wait for the next issue. He likes Fred more than Cobra Commander. I'm here for that. Now, in the future, he wants us to keep this comic as realistic as possible. Glad he did away with the mutant giant spore type storyline. Sprentor is too unrealistic. Let's see Fred take control of Cobra. Okay, great. I'm all for that. And now this is the meat of it. I just noticed that there are a lot of people calling themselves, quote, the Lone Wolf in your letter column. Well, I used to be involved with G.I. Joe fan activities, and I've been the Lone Wolf since issue 30, ! If you don't believe me, just write to Cat with a K or any of the fan club people. I used to put out a newsletter, maintain a base, the whole bit. I just thought I'd clear up the fact that I am the one and only Lone Wolf. Signed, Jeff, the Lone Wolf Lacassi. Now, guys, I didn't think I was going to run into this kind of controversy just in the pages of the G.I. Joe letter pages. If you know Jeff the Lone Wolf Lacassi, I want answers. I want to know, who's Cat with a K? Who is this person? Why does he write about her as if we should know who Cat is? Did Jeff ever meet the other Lone Wolves, and did he exact his revenge? 3, what's the deal with being a lone wolf and having your friends read your comics? 4, did he ever own up really to loving G.I. Joe? 5, is Jeff still out there? Are you still a lone wolf? And has Kat ever had to vouch for you in any other circumstance? 32 years later, I want an answer. So that's it, guys, for Joe on Joe. If you know any of this, you reach out to me at joeonjoepod@gmail. Find me on social at joeonjoepod. It's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Let's get to the bottom of Jeff, the lone wolf Lacassi, and all these other lone wolf imposters. I can't handle it. So next time, Joe and Joe Illustrated, we'll be going over G.I. Joe number 83. We'll see you then. And now you, Joe, and Joeing is half the battle.